I'll write the story based on the title. She fired her husband in front of the whole office, not knowing he already owned the company, with a cinematic, emotional style, long paragraphs, and the requested YouTube engagement lines. I'll keep it as one complete part. She fired her husband in front of the whole office, not knowing he already owned the company. The entire office went silent when the CEO stood up, looked directly into her husband's eyes, and said the words nobody expected to hear. "You're fired. Pack your things and leave this building immediately." Hundreds of employees watched as the man she once promised to stand beside forever stood there with a calm expression, holding back emotions that were much deeper than anyone could see. What nobody in that room knew was that the quiet employee being humiliated in front of everyone wasn't just another worker. He was the hidden owner of the company, the person who had saved it from collapse years earlier, and the man who had given his wife the opportunity to become the powerful leader she was today. Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of humility, make sure to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who believes in doing the right thing, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more inspiring stories. The story began in the heart of a busy city where success was measured by money, titles, and the respect people received when they walked into a room. At the top of one of the city's most successful technology companies stood a woman named Sarafina Vale, a brilliant and ambitious CEO known for her sharp decisions and fearless leadership. Employees admired her intelligence, but many also feared her because she had built a reputation for being cold and unforgiving. Years earlier, Sarafina had not been the powerful woman everyone saw today. She had started with a simple dream and a small desk in a struggling company that was barely surviving. During those difficult years, there was one person who believed in her when nobody else did. His name was Callum Rhodes. Callum was not the type of person who walked into a room and demanded attention. He was quiet, patient, and always willing to help others. While Sarafina chased success, Callum stood behind her, supporting her dreams and sacrificing his own opportunities so she could grow. He worked late nights, solved problems nobody noticed, and stayed beside her during the moments when failure seemed unavoidable. But as the company grew, something changed. The woman who once appreciated every small act of kindness began measuring people only by their positions. She started believing that power was proof of worth. She surrounded herself with executives who praised her every decision and slowly stopped seeing the person who had been beside her from the beginning. Callum continued working at the company, but he never told anyone his true connection to it. Years ago, when the company was almost bankrupt, he had secretly invested his entire inheritance to save it. Instead of taking credit, he placed the ownership documents under a private trust because he wanted Sarafina to believe she had earned her success through her own strength. He never wanted fame. He only wanted the woman he loved to be happy. But love becomes painful when one person forgets the sacrifices that built their world. One ordinary morning, Callum walked into the company wearing the same simple clothes he always wore. Many employees saw him as just another office worker. They had no idea that every major decision in the company's history had been made possible because of him. That morning, the atmosphere was different. Rumors were spreading throughout the building. A major project had failed, and someone needed to take responsibility. The executives gathered in the conference room, searching for someone to blame. Sarafina entered the room with confidence. Her expensive suit, confident steps, and powerful voice reminded everyone why she was considered one of the strongest CEOs in the industry. Then her eyes landed on Callum. "You were responsible for reviewing that project," she said coldly. Callum looked at her calmly. "I reviewed it, but I also warned the team about the risks." The final decision was made by the executive board. The room became uncomfortable. For years, Callum had avoided defending himself. He believed patience would eventually reveal the truth. But Sarafina had changed. She no longer saw him as the person who supported her. She saw him as an obstacle. "You always have an excuse," she said. The words hurt more than she realized. The man who had stood beside her when she had nothing now stood in front of her while she treated him like a stranger. Callum quietly replied, "I never wanted an excuse. I only wanted you to remember that we built this together." But Sarafina was too focused on protecting her reputation. In front of the entire office, she made her decision. Effective immediately, Callum Rhodes is terminated from this company. Gasps filled the room. Some employees looked shocked. Others looked away, uncomfortable witnessing such a personal moment. Callum stood silently. The woman he loved had just destroyed his dignity in front of everyone. But he did not argue. He simply looked at her one last time and said, "I hope one day you remember who was standing beside you before everyone else arrived." Then he turned around and walked out. The entire office watched him leave. Nobody knew that the man walking away had the power to remove the entire executive team with a single signature. Nobody knew that the company's future was actually in his hands. And nobody knew that Serafina had just fired the person who owned everything she had built. For the next few days, Serafina continued running the company as if nothing happened. She believed removing Callum had solved a problem. But then strange things began happening. Investors started asking questions. The board requested an emergency meeting. Important partners wanted explanations. The company's legal department discovered documents that had been hidden for years. Documents revealing that the majority ownership belonged to a private trust controlled by one person. Callum Rhodes. When Serafina entered the emergency board meeting, she expected to hear solutions. Instead, she saw Callum sitting at the head of the table. For the first time in years, she looked at him not as an employee, but as someone she never truly understood. The room became silent. One of the board members stood and said, "Mrs. Vale, there is something you need to know. Mr. Rhodes is not an employee. He is the majority owner of this company." The color disappeared from Serafina's face. Every memory came rushing back. The nights he stayed awake helping her. The sacrifices he made. The moments when he encouraged her to continue. She suddenly realized that the person she had treated as worthless was the very reason she had everything. Callum looked at her with sadness, not anger. "I never wanted control," he said. "I never wanted people to know my name. I just wanted you to succeed. But somewhere along the way, success became more important than the people who helped you reach it." Serafina struggled to hold back tears. For the first time, she saw the damage her pride had caused. She had spent years building a company but had almost destroyed the most important relationship in her life. She apologized, but Callum did not immediately accept. Because some wounds are not healed by a single apology. They are healed through change. Over the following months, Serafina began transforming. She started listening to employees instead of only giving orders. She learned the names of people who worked behind the scenes. She became the leader she once dreamed of becoming. And Callum watched quietly. Not because he wanted revenge. But because he wanted to know if the woman he loved could find her way back. Slowly, she proved that she could. One evening, months after everything happened, Serafina visited the small apartment where Callum was staying. She did not arrive as a CEO. She arrived as the person she had forgotten how to be. She admitted her mistakes. She told him that success had made her blind and that losing him made her understand what truly mattered. Callum listened. He knew forgiveness would take time. But he also knew people could change when they finally faced the truth. The story of Serafina and Callum became a reminder throughout the company that titles do not define people, and power means nothing without compassion. The same employees who once watched Callum leave in silence later watched him return, not as someone seeking revenge, but as someone willing to give a second chance. Because sometimes the strongest person in the room is not the one with the loudest voice. Sometimes it is the person who stays humble even when they have every reason not to. If this story touched your heart, please support this video by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about kindness, forgiveness, and second chances. Before the ending, comment, "Kindness always wins," if you believe people deserve a chance to change and that humility is more valuable than power. In the end, Serafina learned the greatest lesson of her life. A company can be rebuilt with money, but trust and love can only be rebuilt with a sincere heart. The man she once dismissed as insignificant turned out to be the foundation of everything she had achieved. And sometimes, the person we fail to appreciate today becomes the person we wish we had never lost tomorrow.